It began innocently enough. In 1970, a nursing student named Donna received a gift from her mother, a seemingly benign, Raggedy Ann doll with a painted-on smile and button eyes that glittered with an unassuming charm. But Donna would soon realize that behind the stitched grin and soft, childlike form lay a darkness far beyond her comprehension. At first, the doll sat quietly on Donna's bed, its presence a nostalgic reminder of childhood. But soon, things began to change. Donna and her roommate Angie noticed that the doll seemed to shift positions when they weren't looking. They would leave the apartment, only to return and find Annabelle with her legs crossed or her arms folded in ways they hadn't left her. What started as an eerie curiosity quickly spiraled into something more sinister when they found the doll standing upright, leaning against a chair as if caught in mid-motion. The strange occurrences escalated. Notes written in crude, childish scrawl began appearing on parchment paper that neither Donna nor Angie owned. The messages were simple yet chilling: help us and help Lou. Lou was Donna's boyfriend, who had always felt an inexplicable unease about the doll. He dismissed it as an irrational fear at first, but that soon changed. One night, Lou had a particularly vivid nightmare. He awoke drenched in sweat, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. As he sat up, catching his breath, he felt a pressure on his chest as though a pair of invisible hands were pressing him down. His eyes widened in terror as he looked down and saw Annabelle at the foot of the bed, her stitched smile more menacing than ever. Just as suddenly, he felt sharp, burning pain, claw marks seared across his chest as if an unseen force had lashed out. By morning, the marks had faded, but the terror did not. Donna and Angie, now terrified, sought help from a medium. During a seance, they learned that a spirit named Annabelle Higgins resided within the doll. Annabelle, according to the medium, was a young girl who had died tragically on the land where their apartment now stood. The spirit claimed she felt comforted by Donna and Angie, asking for their permission to stay within the doll. Moved by the story, the girls agreed. But Lou remained skeptical, convinced that the spirit's innocence was a ruse. Lou's suspicions proved all too accurate. The activity grew more violent, objects would move or crash inexplicably, and cold, unsettling drafts would sweep through the room. One evening, Donna came home to find the doll lying on her bed with what appeared to be blood smeared on its cloth hands and chest. The crimson stain was a grotesque mockery of life, as if the doll itself had bled. Frightened and desperate, Donna reached out to a local Episcopal priest, Father Hagen, who listened to their harrowing tale and quickly referred the case to someone who could help: Ed and Lorraine Warren, the renowned paranormal investigators known for their work with the occult and supernatural. Lorraine, a clairvoyant with a keen sensitivity to the spirit world, felt a wave of dark energy wash over her as soon as she entered the apartment. "This isn't a child spirit," she warned. "It's something inhuman, something that preys on sympathy to gain permission and power." Ed explained that what resided within Annabelle was no mere ghost, but a demonic entity. It had lied about its identity to manipulate Donna and Angie, using their compassion to secure a foothold in their home. "Spirits don't possess objects like dolls," Ed said, his eyes grave and resolute. "They possess people. This doll is simply a conduit, an anchor for the entity's malevolent intent." The Warrens knew they had to act quickly before the situation spiraled further out of control. Ed and Lorraine Warren wasted no time. Armed with years of experience and unwavering resolve, they began their investigation into Annabelle's true nature. Lorraine's clairvoyant gift allowed her to sense the malevolent spirit's presence as soon as they stepped into Donna and Angie's apartment. The air was thick, charged with an unnatural energy that clung to the skin like damp fog. Annabelle sat on the living room couch, lifeless yet somehow aware, her button eyes glistening as though they held secrets too dark to tell. Ed's deep voice cut through the tension as he laid out the danger. "This isn't a case of a haunting. This is a case of oppression. It seeks to wear you down, to claim more than your fear. It wants your souls." His words sent shivers down Donna's spine. She recalled the inexplicable moments, the cold, ghostly touches at night, and the creeping sense of being watched when no one else was there. This was more than they had ever feared. That night, Lorraine prepared a ritual to bind and contain the spirit within the doll, ensuring it could no longer harm anyone. As she moved through the motions, reciting protective prayers, shadows seemed to shift and move at the edges of the room. Ed, standing guard, felt a sudden chill slice through the air, followed by a low, guttural growl that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. Annabelle's once innocent form now seemed to radiate malice, her painted smile contorted by the flickering candlelight. Suddenly, a crash came from the kitchen, a cabinet door swung open and slammed shut with a force that rattled the entire room. Donna gasped, clutching Angie's arm as they backed into the corner. The temperature plummeted, and their breath came in clouds. "Stay focused," Lorraine urged, her voice unwavering but her eyes wide with vigilance. She closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind, trying to sense the source of the entity's power. Moments stretched like hours. Then, Annabelle shifted. It was subtle at first, a slight tilt of her head, but it was enough to send a wave of panic through the room. The growling deepened, resonating from within the doll itself. Ed stepped forward, holding a crucifix aloft. "You are not welcome here," he commanded, his voice ringing with authority. The air grew thick, pressing down on everyone as if the room itself were collapsing inward. But Ed held firm, his focus unwavering. The growling ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Lorraine opened her eyes, a knowing look passing between her and Ed. "It's bound," she whispered, the room easing its grip on them as if exhaling after a long, torturous breath. Yet, the doll's presence was still palpable, a quiet, pulsing darkness that lingered like a warning. After ensuring the apartment was safe, Ed and Lorraine decided the best course of action was to remove Annabelle from Donna's home. "It's too dangerous to leave it here," Ed explained. "The entity has claimed this place as a domain. It needs to be sealed away." With the doll carefully secured in a protective case, the Warrens drove home, taking precautions to prevent the spirit from wreaking havoc along the way. But even with these measures, the ride was anything but peaceful. As they drove down the winding, shadowy roads of Connecticut, the atmosphere inside the car grew colder. The radio turned on by itself, blaring static before switching to an old song that seemed grotesquely out of place. The steering wheel pulled left and right, trying to swerve the car off the road. Ed tightened his grip, jaw set with determination. "Not today," he muttered under his breath, fighting against the unseen force with every ounce of strength. When they finally reached their home, Lorraine exhaled with relief, but her eyes stayed locked on the doll, which sat unnaturally still in the back seat. "We're not done yet," she said. Ed nodded, understanding that their work was far from over. The entity had been subdued, but not defeated. Annabelle would need to be contained in a way that ensured it could never lash out again. The Warrens prepared a special case, reinforced with protective prayers and symbols, to house Annabelle in their occult museum. "This will be her prison," Ed said as he locked the doll inside. Lorraine placed a gentle hand on the glass, feeling the dull thrum of malevolence that lay dormant but not extinguished. "It's quiet now," she whispered, "but we must always be vigilant." And so, Annabelle became one of the most infamous items in the Warrens' collection, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the one that lies just beyond, where shadows linger and spirits wait for their chance to return. Annabelle sat encased behind thick glass, surrounded by relics of dark stories past. The Warrens' Occult Museum was a place like no other, where each object whispered tales of possession, tragedy, and fear. To the casual observer, Annabelle appeared as just a doll, a simple plaything with painted eyes and a red yarn smile. But visitors who approached her case felt an inexplicable chill, as if the room grew colder in her presence. Lorraine Warren always warned, "Do not touch. Do not even tap on the glass." It wasn't long before tales of Annabelle's influence began to circulate among those who visited the museum. One particularly audacious visitor, a young man who scoffed at the warnings, rapped on the glass and laughed as he taunted, "If you're real, do something." Lorraine, who had been in the adjoining room, sensed the sudden shift, the malevolence waking like a beast disturbed. She rushed back only to see the young man standing with a smirk, oblivious to the dark consequence that awaited him. As the story goes, the young man left the museum that day with his girlfriend, still laughing at the notion that a doll possessed any true power. But as they rode down the narrow, tree-lined roads, something unseen intervened. The young man lost control of his motorcycle, crashing into an oncoming vehicle. He died on impact, his girlfriend severely injured but able to recall his final moments. He was laughing, she whispered to Lorraine when visited in the hospital, and then, we crashed. Lorraine's eyes hardened with a knowing sorrow. Annabelle had claimed another warning, etched in pain and death. Despite the danger, people continued to flock to the museum, drawn by the sinister allure of Annabelle. For those who believed, the stories were cautionary tales, proof that darkness existed beyond what the eye could see. For skeptics, it was a show, a piece of theatrics from a bygone era of paranormal hysteria. But Lorraine always insisted, it's not belief that gives it power. It's the defiance, the mockery, the invitation. Over the years, even seasoned paranormal experts who came to examine Annabelle walked away with newfound respect and fear. Some reported feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness or dread upon nearing her glass enclosure. Others claimed to hear faint whispers, as if the doll carried a fragment of the further within her stitched form. One priest, who visited at Ed and Lorraine's behest, even felt compelled to bless the case repeatedly, unable to shake the sense that something within was watching him closely. The Warrens took these incidents seriously, reinforcing the case with sacred inscriptions and ensuring that no one could open it. Ed explained to guests that the case served as a barrier, not just to contain Annabelle but to prevent her influence from spreading. It's like a lock on a cage, he said, his eyes shadowed by memories of battles with the unknown. You don't keep the danger out, you keep it in. Yet, even with these precautions, Annabelle remained restless. Late at night, Lorraine would sometimes awaken with a jolt, as if touched by an icy hand, only to find the museum unnaturally silent. On those nights, she would stand before the case, the room drenched in darkness save for the dim glow of a single bulb. The doll sat motionless, but Lorraine swore she could feel it, an energy pulsing faintly, a reminder that they were merely the keepers of a deeper, more ancient force that refused to be silenced. The stories of Annabelle's power rippled far beyond the walls of the museum. Researchers, thrill-seekers, and skeptics alike wanted to see the doll that had been declared by Ed Warren as one of the most dangerous items they'd ever encountered. For Lorraine, each visitor was a test, a new potential spark that could reignite Annabelle's fury. You think it's just a story, she would tell them, her voice low and serious. But stories don't leave scars, and they don't steal lives. One night, a paranormal investigator visiting from overseas came to see Annabelle. He had heard the rumors but was determined to debunk them. Standing alone before the case, he took out his phone to capture a photo. Just as he pressed the button, the air grew dense, and an involuntary shiver ran down his spine. His phone screen went black, and the temperature dropped sharply, the room now suffused with an unnatural stillness. The investigator stepped back, breath ragged, as he realized he could no longer muster the courage to move closer. The doll had not shifted, not in the slightest, but the air around her throbbed like a heartbeat. The following day, he spoke to Lorraine, his voice trembling. I don't know what I felt, he admitted. Lorraine nodded, her eyes soft with understanding but firm with warning. Sometimes, feeling is enough, she said. And so, the legend of Annabelle continued to grow, as chilling and enduring as the dark presence sealed behind glass, waiting for the moment someone would challenge it once more. Years turned into decades, yet Annabelle remained, her presence a haunting constant in the Warrens' occult museum. The glass case became a barrier between the living and the darkness that lay dormant inside, reinforced by blessings and rites. Ed Warren passed away in 2006, leaving behind a legacy defined by battles with the supernatural, but Lorraine carried on, her resolve unbroken. She continued to guard the collection, visiting Annabelle's case regularly, her whispers of protective prayers a daily ritual. This isn't just for show, she would remind visitors, her gaze shifting to the doll, this is a warning. Lorraine's caution was well-founded. Annabelle's reputation had grown beyond the museum, becoming a chilling tale shared across the globe. paranormal enthusiasts, ghost hunters, and the merely curious recounted stories of people who had interacted with the doll and faced consequences, crashes, sudden illnesses, or inexplicable misfortunes that followed them like shadows. Even those who doubted the existence of spirits admitted that something about Annabelle seemed different. It was as if the doll's power thrived not on belief alone, but on the fascination it inspired, feeding off the fear and skepticism alike. One story that Lorraine would often share involved a woman who visited the museum with her husband. They had come out of curiosity, interested in hearing the tales of haunted artifacts, but the woman's attention was particularly drawn to Annabelle. She stood before the case for a long time, studying the simple, painted features. "It's just a doll," she whispered, barely audible, but the moment she turned away, a sudden dizziness overcame her. She stumbled, reaching for her husband as her vision blurred. When she finally recovered, Lorraine was already by her side, concern etched into her face. "Some things aren't meant to be tested," Lorraine said softly. The museum itself became a symbol of the Warrens' fight against the unexplained, a place where ordinary objects took on extraordinary menace. To those who entered, the rows of relics were more than just curiosities, they were silent witnesses to the unseen forces that lurked just beyond the veil. And of all the relics, Annabelle remained the most feared. Even experienced paranormal researchers treated her case with respect, some refusing to approach it altogether, as if proximity alone could invite disaster. In 2019, Lorraine Warren passed away at the age of 92, leaving behind an unparalleled legacy in the world of the paranormal. Her death marked the end of an era, but it did not silence the stories. If anything, interest in Annabelle surged, fueled by documentaries, movies, and accounts from those who claimed to have felt her influence. Yet, without Lorraine's watchful eyes, questions arose about whether the safeguards would hold. The museum remained under the care of the Warrens' descendants, who promised to maintain the protections, but whispers suggested that Annabelle's presence had grown more restless, as if aware that the guardian who had kept her dormant was no longer there. Despite the decades that had passed since Donna first received the doll, the tale of Annabelle continues to send shivers down spines. She is a testament to the idea that some objects are more than just material. Some carry with them a weight, a story that resonates with darkness. The museum, though closed to the public for a time, still held the doll that seemed to embody this very notion. A museum caretaker once remarked, "Every now and then, you'll hear something shift, like a rustle, and you can't help but think it's her." To this day, Annabelle remains locked in her case, adorned with warnings, "Positively do not open." It's a reminder, not just of the doll's story, but of the unseen forces that the Warrens spent their lives confronting. A reminder that the line between our world and the one that lies beyond is thinner than we'd like to believe, and sometimes, all it takes is a simple invitation for that darkness to cross over. And in the still silence of the museum, the echo of Lorraine's final warning seems to linger, respect it, or suffer the consequences. And so, Annabelle's story continues, whispered in the dark, recounted by those who dare to remember. A tale not just of a doll, but of the relentless pursuit of the unknown and the timeless dance between curiosity and caution. As long as Annabelle sits behind her glass, eyes unblinking and smile frozen, her legend lives on, a chilling reminder that some stories are better left untold.